Nice.
Yeah.
What you're hearing are the sounds of people everywhere putting on Bombas socks, underwear, and T-shirts made from absurdly soft materials that feel like plush clouds. Yeah, that plush. And the best part? For every item you purchase, Bombas donates another to someone facing homelessness.
Bombas. Big comfort for everyone. Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/ACAST. Code ACAST.
How are you, mate?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, mate?
Good, and welcome all to no, it's not a chapter of my life, it's a game of my life, because I'm talking to Kenny Hibbitt, the goal scorer of arguably one of the most iconic goals ever scored in the history of association football. And I can't believe that Brian Howard Clough never sent you a crate of champagne for scoring that goal, as they were on the way to Terry Curran thinks it was mainland Spain, but I think it was Mallorca. But it doesn't really matter. How are you, Ken? Are you okay, mate?
I'm all right, Gabbie. You?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. So we're going to take a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
We're going to revisit that game and see what memories of that game you have.
Yeah.
We're also going to be looking at periphery stuff as well. What was Kenny Hibbitt doing in 1976-77 season? Because that was the last game of the season on the 13th of May. Denise Williams was number 1 with 3. Rod Stewart was number 2 with I Don't Want to Talk About It. And I'll be honest, I don't think Ian Greaves did either after the final whistle, did he? And Starsky and Hutch was the staple, and Kojak and Match of the Day and Mike Yarwood, etc. There was a lot going on in the 70s, wasn't there, Kenny?
There was. I watched all them programmes, actually.
Brilliant. What was your favourite, Ken?
Oh, well, I did. Morecambe and Wise was always a laugh. I like to laugh.
Yeah.
And Morecambe and Wise was always great. But over recent years, Only Fools and Horses took over that.
Yeah.
That label from me, because they were just amazing. But yeah, there was some great shows on TV when I got the chance to watch them. Having 2 children growing up, so yeah, it was a great period. I got married in '73, so my kids, was very young when '76 came along, and that game that you talked about, it was on telly not long ago, and the commentator, I didn't realise what the commentator thought when I ran over the ball with Willie Carr on the free kick. He thought I'd touched it on purpose.
Yep.
So that he could move the defenders away from in the line of the ball, and Willie checked, stopped, and then he chipped it.
Yeah.
But what actually happened, when I ran over it, I wasn't supposed to touch the ball. So it's easier to chip a ball that's standing still or sitting still than it is for a ball that's rolling away from you. And Willie did a remarkable chip for the ball running away from him, and he chipped it in perfectly for me. But the commentator thought it was all set. It was a plan. The plan was I ran over it and he chipped it, but the plan wasn't me touching it first, which he thought that was part of it, but it wasn't. But yeah, I got a full volley on it, and the keeper tried to get a hand. He got a hand on it, and it trickled in the corner. And we did say at half time, actually, Gabbie, that Bolton was trying to kick us off the ground, off the pitch, and we thought, right, and we all said, right, if that's how bad they want it, because we was already promoted,
yes,
that's how bad they want it. Let's make it bloody tougher for them, So we set about defending, and then of course the goalkeeper went off injured, and Bobby Gould came on, and they started lobbing all these high balls into the box, and we really had to battle and fight to keep the clean sheet, which is what we did. And unfortunately for Bolton, they kept him down, and it put Nottingham Forest up. And going back to what you first said early on about champagne, I did say in an interview that maybe Mr. Clough will send me a bottle of champagne now. But apparently I heard that he said, listen, it wasn't his goal and it wasn't Wolves that got us up. You got yourselves up, which in a way it was, because they were in a position to get promoted. But I never expected to face Ian Greaves again after that night. But when he came to Wolves, he looked at me and Willie, and we were down the corridors by the changing room. He said, "Oh, you two." You the pair that's in, and we did a runner. He realised that two of his players that he had at Wolves was the two players that kept Bolton down. Yeah, it was terrific.
It was quite incredible, really, because in 1972, Wolverhampton Wanderers got to the UEFA Cup final.
Yes.
Against Spurs, which was the first All-English European Cup final.
Yes.
In 1972, that year as well, you got in the way of Leeds United winning the double when you beat Leeds on the last game of the season at Molineux.
Right.
The season before 76-77, you played against Liverpool when Queen's Park Rangers finished the football season top of the pile. Took an early lead, then I believe Liverpool beat you 3-1 and gained the title and took the title from Queen's Park Rangers. So last game dramas were par for the course for Wolverhampton Wanderers, but this game, it was a second division game because for some reason the wheels come off Wolves' truck. Because you were, me growing up as a kid, and you're right with that commentary, it would have been Gerald Sinstant, wouldn't it, from Granada?
Gerald Sinstant, yeah.
It was Hugh Johns, wasn't it, with ATV
right.
in our area.
Yeah, that's right.
So me growing up as a kid watching Star Soccer, it was always like the Doug and Richards and Ibby and, and then Birmingham with Bob Latchford, Trevor Francis, Villa with Andy Gray, Brian Little. And, for Wolves to get relegated, that must have been a little bit of a culture shock for you.
It was something that we never dreamt would happen to us. It was tough at the time because we'd had so much influence on other results, like you said, with the Leeds game and the Liverpool game. And I mean, it was a fortress at Molineux, and nobody wanted to come to Molineux and try and get a result. It was a culture shock. And fortunately, Sammy Chung took over from Bill McGarry at the time, and he kept the same squad. In them days, Gabbie, no player, now players, if they get relegated from the Premier League, they want to move on.
Yeah.
Not one player at Wolves wanted to move the club to get back into the first division with another club. They wanted to stay at Wolves because the team spirit and the camaraderie we had there was second to none. And we said we want to get back together. So we stuck together. Sammy took over, and we walked the championship. We played fantastically well in the second division, but it was a bit of a culture shock. I don't think we expected that when they picked the League Cup in '74, playing in semi-finals and UEFA Cup finals. Yeah, it was a bit of a shock. And don't ask me why or how it happened. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I don't think anybody could at the time. It just didn't happen for us, winning enough games to stay in the first division. But it was a culture shock when we got relegated.
Where did Sammy Chung come from? Because I'd never heard of him.
Yeah, he came from Ipswich. Yeah, he was a great coach, great lad. Had great fun in our training sessions. He was one of us. Bill McGarry was the opposite. He was hard and firm and didn't hold back in anything he had to say. But Sammy, he put your arm around you, and it was a good relationship actually. It was a good partnership that they had. One was giving us a kick up the backside, and the other one was putting your arm around you, and it was a nice medium that we had, and it worked very well. I mean, we had such a good side though in the second division. I think there were 5 of us in double figures scoring goals. Yeah. We was too good for that league, that was sure. I remember Chelsea coming to Molineux actually on that end of that season. I think we had to get a draw to win the championship, and I think Chelsea needed a draw to get promoted. But if they beat us, I think they might have won the championship. Yeah. And it ended up being 20 minutes to go. It was 1 each. I think John Richards got the equaliser, made it 1 each, and they thought, well, we want promotion. let them have it. And so we got the championship. We just kept the ball up. And it was like, I've never faced anything like that or been involved in anything like that. But neither side wanted to concede, so we just passed the ball around. It was amazing. But yeah, it was a great season for all of us. We had a great midfield in Willie Carr and Stevie Daly himself, and we all scored double figures in goals. And Richie up front always led the line exceptionally well. Great player, great goal scorer. Andy came later. There was another great striker we played with, but yeah, in that season we got promotion back to the first division. We were a very good side.
How does that work, Ken, when Chelsea are playing you and you know what the dynamics are? Does something just happen on the pitch where the players just think, well, they ain't going to lay a glove on us, so we ain't going to lay a glove on them. We're just going to see out time. What happens? Does captains call something?
No. For some reason, it just happened.
Yeah.
And I heard one or two of their players say, keep the ball. And we thought, okay. They've accepted the fact that they're going to get promoted, but they're going to come second.
Yeah.
So we were quite happy with that. We were champions. And yeah, it was one of them. They didn't want to go forward, and we didn't want to go forward. So we just played around in midfield, and unfortunately, when the whistle went, we were champions, and they got promoted as well. So it was, one of the. I don't know why it happened. It just happened, and in fact, my wife mentioned about it today, talking about it today, and that's the only time I ever saw two teams playing on the pitch that let you have the ball. So yeah, it was good.
Just amazing stuff, how players just work it out for themselves, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
And how many times do people say footballers are thick? No, they're not. They're the most intelligent people that's ever walked the planet, let me tell you.
Well, they're letting the brains in the feet, don't they?
Well, some of them I'm not too sure whether the feet are another part of their anatomy. But you also drew with Chelsea 3-3 at Stamford Bridge that season as well on the 11th of December.
Yeah, was that in the where the pitch was full of sand and?
It probably was, because in those days Stamford Bridge was a nightmare, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Eddie McCready was the manager, wasn't he?
Yeah, Eddie McCready, yeah.
And then I think he left at the end of the season when they got promoted, because Ken Shalido wasn't far behind him. Again, with Wolves and with Chelsea, there was things going on behind the scenes, and Bill McGarry was the players. Relieved to see Bill go, sad to see Bill go. How come Bill actually exited Wolves? Because, he really did build a great team there at Wolverhampton Wanderers and never spent a lot of money, did he?
No. I think the most he spent was for Steve Kindon. I mean, he paid £100,000 for him. I think that was the maximum he paid. But when he took over from Ronnie Allen in '68, which was 3 days after I signed for him from Bradford, I didn't know much about Bill McGarry. We soon found out when he came in. He came in the dressing room with all the lads and laid the foundations down. Said, "I'm the boss. You do what I say. You work hard." And he walked out. Yeah. And with Dugan and Bailey and all the experienced players that we had at Wolves. I mean, I was only a kid, and I hadn't played a first team game at the time. But he came in and he set his stall out. A lot of the players didn't like him, but they give 100% for him every game, and he also introduced a lot of our youngsters into the side. In the time that he was there, like Alan Sunderland, Stevie Daly, myself, John Richards. He introduced Jeff Palmer. There was loads of us. He got us through it. You might not have liked him, but you had to respect him, and he built a really good side. We won the League Cup in '74, as you know, which was very unexpected at the time he came in. But got us into the UEFA Cup final against Tottenham. I think if we'd have played into Milan, we'd have beat them, because we beat all the foreign sides, and then we end up getting beat against a home team like Tottenham. But and then after the '74 League Cup final, '75 season, that's when I said earlier on that we was absolutely distraught. I couldn't put my finger on the reason why we end up running around Wembley Stadium with the League Cup in '74, and yet we get relegated in '75, '76. It was a strange feeling, and they dismissed Bill, And that's when Sammy, his coach, took over, and Bill moved on. I think he went up to Newcastle at one time.
Yeah, it's quite incredible, really, because again, when you look at the spending capacity, you look at the way that the spend was meted out,
Yeah.
and Bill got just such great value for his money, and just built a brilliant team. And
Yeah.
we're going to be talking now about the game on the 14th of May 1977, and most of them were still Bill's boys, wasn't there? I mean, in goal,
yeah.
Gary Pearce played in goal that day. Can
Yeah.
you remember what your team was, what your lineup was, Kenny? And then we'll go
No.
through Bolton's. No.
No.
Have you got many?
You must have it all down there, Gabbie,
Yeah,
because I can't remember who. I know Bobby Gold went in goal when Pearce got injured. I know Willie played. I know Richie played. On the back might have been Monroe and McCall. Was it Palmer and Parkin?
I'm going to go through them now.
Go on then.
But for football fans,
Yeah.
they seem to think, and I'm not in this school of thought, that a professional football player remembers every game that they played in, and there must be really only a scattering or a handful of games that you can remember much about any game, isn't there, Ken?
Yeah, well, my wife says I can't remember what I did last week, but she says he can remember what he did 40 bloody years ago.
But only the important stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I said to her. I said that was my life. That was my that's my job.
Yeah.
And she said, you know the minute, you know who passed it, you know where they put the ball in the net, you do that. But what did you do last week? You can't remember. No, because it's not important, that.
But then, I mean, I was listening to a podcast with Tony Curry some time ago, and they was talking about a game. It was Tony's debut for Sheffield United. And said, TC, name the team. He said, I can't name the team. I mean, they went through and he named a few, and you think, it's a job at the end of the day. It's a job, and you play, and when you're playing over 500 games of football, there's absolutely no way that you can remember all the games and all the players that played in there. It's impossible.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. You can remember all the highlights, all the things that happened in that games, but if you want to try and name the team, it's very difficult. I was with Tony in the summer, and we sat and had breakfast next morning after we'd done a charity golf day for a big charity up in Norfolk, and we sat and we just sat there talking, and of course he can talk for England, but which he did play for England anyway. But no, he couldn't remember half the teams he played for, but he can remember all the incidents and all the games, all the goals he scored. Yeah. And so when you brought his name up, it just took me back to what he was talking about in the summer up in Norfolk. Yeah. Oh, no, it's true that he remembers most of the players because like Bailey was always captain, and the back was always Parksy, Palmer, Monroe, McCall, Parkin. All the and Richie up front with Doug and who else? Andy Gray. And Waggy. You got used to it, and then Jim McCallio came around, and then. Yeah, there was some fantastic players, and they were great help and great support for me as a former player. Without them, I wouldn't have been the player that I wouldn't have played that many games anyway without their help, and they were a great support of me. But I was very fortunate, Gab, that I played with some great players and great lads as well.
And the lovely thing that I find with talking to all great footballers of the 70s and heroes, idols and icons of myself is that you're all so very, very humble, and all of you say that, but you could have walked into almost any team, Kenny. You were as good as absolutely anything. You're very modest. I was
modest. I was a Wolves man, Gab. I was a Wolves man.
I know
through and through.
But Pearce was in goal. Jeff Palmer was right back. Yeah. Derek Parkin was left back.
Yeah.
Francis Monroe wore the number 5 shirt, as he always did.
Yeah.
Colin Brazier. Colin played that game.
I was with Colin the other week.
Yeah, I think it was his second game for Wolves. It was one of his early games for Wolverhampton Wanderers, Colin Brazier. There was Steve Daly, Kenny Hibbitt and Willie Carr.
Yeah.
In midfield. And then there was John Richards played.
Yeah.
Alan Sunderland.
Yeah.
And Goldie was substitute. There was a lad named Pitching.
Martin Patchin.
Patchin, that's the boy.
Martin Patchin.
He wore the he wore. I think he wore the number 10 shirt that day, Patchin.
Right.
Because I was looking at the game, and when I go onto the internet, I can't find it. I try and go onto YouTube, and then I'll freeze frame it and go down to 1 to 11, which I do. But there isn't any of that. There's only one recording on YouTube. It's about 8 minutes, and it doesn't give you the full lineup of the teams. So my good friend Charles Ross, who used to do the Wolverhampton Wanderers load of ball fanzine, I said, Charlie, you've got to help me out. Who the bloody hell played number 10 for Wolverhampton Wanderers that day? And he said Patchin did. And I'd never heard that boy. Tell me a little bit more about him. What's your memories of him?
Oh, Martin he could play anywhere across the middle of the park, and he also played up front as well. He had long hair, big friends of John Richards and myself and all the lads. Yeah, great lad. Yeah. And he's a northerner. It was just unlucky that the team that we had, the squad was really a strong squad, and so he was limited to the games he played. But when he played, he'd never let anybody down. He was a good ball player, worked hard, got up and down. I think he ended up playing for Watford. I think he went to Watford after he left us. But Martin was a real nice guy as well. But as I say, some players couldn't break in because of the strength of the team we had. But Martin was a nice lad. He did really well. He was just unlucky that he was competing with some very good players, with Willie and Stevie Daly. He was more of a midfield player, than a striker. But he was a good lad, great squad player, and you need a good squad of players. You can't just have 11 and then nobody behind you. You've got to be pushed. And he always was pushing players, to stay in the side. So he was competing, and you thought, well, if I don't play well, he's going to take my place. So you went out there and did the best you could to keep him out. Not just him, but any player, But the squad was good. And Martin was a good lad. And I met him a couple of years ago. He came to a Wolves do, and he had long hair when we first met him, and he still got long hair, and I couldn't recognise him to start with. But he's still around, and good kid, good lad.
And Goldie was the sub because he come on and went in goal. Now, it wasn't the first time that Goldie went in goal because he wasn't bad between the sticks, was he? And he was a great character as well, Bobby Gould. I mean, he done the rounds, didn't he? I mean, he must have been a tremendous player to have in and around the squad to learn from. Yeah,
well, he came when he first came. He came to us twice.
Yeah.
When he first came in, he was a busybody. He put defenders under a lot of pressure when they had the ball, and he was a nuisance. What I call a player but he knew where the net was. And so when he first came, his enthusiasm was first class. But then we sold him to West Ham, and he scored a few goals there. But then he came back to us. He came and played with us twice. But he was a player that did it in short spells and then went somewhere else and did it again and then went somewhere else, and he was a bit of he leapt around the teams. But when he was with us, he did a great job. And of course, I got to know him very, very well. And then when I left Wolves in '84, he was at Coventry and he took me there, and I played under him for 2 years.
And he got brilliant eyebrows as well, hadn't he, Bobby Gould?
Oh, yeah, thick as what you want.
But he kind of was like, and just one of the games, I think one of the game's great characters that doesn't get the recognition really that he deserves. Because, when we look back at the game and we talk about some of these characters, but Bobby Gould's proper up there with all of them as being a right character, ain't he?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Of course he is. I mean, he was a character as a manager because he did so many. He would do a lot of silly things as well. I mean, if you remember, he took Coventry and they started doing ballet dancing to try and improve keeping on your toes. So yeah, he was full of that. And then I went and played for him, and he brought me off at half time because I was having a smile with a player, an opposition player. And all I was saying was, I said, "You lucky bugger." I said, that was going wide. He said, and the comment back to me made me smile a bit. But he saw me smile, and we were losing 1-0. He took me straight off the pitch. Yeah. So I had to go and see him, and but that was Bobby. He was, he got a bit hyped up at times, but enthusiasm, he couldn't falter. He was full of it.
And you just know that when a character like Bobby Gould goes in goal, and you look at this shirt that he had from Gary Pearce, I mean, he could have camped in that shirt, because goalkeepers are big units, aren't they? And then when an outfield player goes in goal, it like swamps them.
I know.
But a great personality. You knew that he wasn't going to scare.
No, I've done it, Gabbie. I went in goals at Tottenham for about 60, 70 minutes when Paul Bradshaw broke his finger.
Right.
And I kept a clean sheet. It was lovely. But I remember Peter Taylor, he broke away from the halfway line. He got the other side of our back four, and I pretended to run out towards the ball, and Peter picked his head up, saw me running out, but by the time he's put his head back down to try and chip me, I was running back to my goal, and he tried to chip me, and he dropped it right into my arms, and I went, hey, I put my fingers, I said, I'm a midfield player, I read it well. And he walking off at half time, he called me a so-so. So I got a lovely picture of me thumping out a corner coming at White Hart Lane. I was thumping a corner out. Because a little story there from me wanting to go. I was always when I was at Bradford Park Avenue as a youth team player, we played at Stockport County in a cup replay. We drew 3-3 at Bradford Park Avenue, and we had to go to Stockport in the replay. And I was only 16, and the goalkeeper didn't turn up. He was a schoolboy keeper, and he didn't turn up. So I went and played in goals from the beginning to the end, and we won 3-0. And I was dropping these half volleys out to the winger, and Stockport offered $5,000 for me as a goalkeeper. They'd never seen a goalkeeper. They used to throw it up in the air and launch it. Well, I wasn't. I was half volleying it out to wide men all the time, and they'd never seen it like that. And I came and collected a few high balls, and my goal kicking was long, and so and I heard afterwards that they offered $5,000 for me.
Did you, with Terry in the back garden, go in goal? Where did the goalkeeping come from? Because I can't imagine Terry going in goal, but clearly you did.
Well, no. What happens, Gab? When we were growing up, we used to live on a street, but in front of the street was a play, like it was an awful playing surface, but it was a playground area for it was awful. So we used to we made our own pair of goals about 20 yards apart. Went and got all the grass sods from up in the upper lane and on through a field, cut them all out, put all the grass in front of the goal so we could dive, and then just banged the ball. We played pot shots sort of thing. I'd hit it, he'd save it, and then he'd hit it, I'd save it. And that used to go on for hours and weeks and months, just doing that. And I think that's where it came in. So I was able to, Teddy was too small anyway at going goal. So I was, but yeah, I always fancy myself in goal for a reason. I want the bravest, but anything, I could read the game quite well, but I didn't want to. I want to score goals, mate, and that there's nothing better than scoring goals. But that's where it came from, my goalkeeping. We've playing with my brother for years and just knocking 20-yard balls at each other. So we were hitting it with left foot and hit it with his right foot. We were saving it, and then I'd put the ball down, I'd smack one at him, and he'd save it, and so forth.
Because I've watched clips of both you and Terry. I still don't know whether you were left-footed or right-footed, both, yeah.
Well, somebody actually rang me not long ago and said, we'd just been watching your goals on YouTube. They said you scored more goals with your left foot than you did your right foot. Yeah. And yet all my penalties and corners and free kicks was taken with my right foot. Yeah. But and I said, are you sure? So I went on. My daughter got me on there, and I couldn't believe how many goals I'd actually scored with the left foot. But if I were going to take a penalty, Gab, it was always my right was the strongest out of the two.
In goal for Bolton Wanderers that day.
Yeah. Go on.
Seamus McDonough that
Aye.
tried his best to get that shot of yours, but
I
failed.
know. He did.
John Ritson was fullback. Peter Nicholson was left fullback.
Yeah.
They got Big Sam played that
Yes,
day, and
yeah,
Sam hit the bar, didn't he? And had a
Correct.
and had one narrowly wide as well.
Yeah, and Jones. I think Jones was another centre back.
Paul Jones was the other centre half. Now,
Yeah.
I do a regular podcast with Terry Curran, and
Yeah.
TC says he was some player. He says,
Oh, he
Gabbie,
was.
if it weren't for injuries, he would have been a proper top player,
Yeah,
Paul Jones.
Without a doubt. Them two, Allardyce and Jones, were very strong at the back, solid as rocks. But Jones had a little bit more than Sam. Sam used to be a big brawling, strong as an ox, good strong tackler. But Jones had a little bit more about him. Yeah, two good centre backs.
Roy Greaves in midfield. Was he related to Ian? Was he?
No, related. I played with Roy in Seattle. When I went in Seattle in '82, Roy Greaves was in Seattle.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, and he talked about that game a lot while we were there because Stevie Daly was over in Seattle as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I play with Roy over there. Yeah, lovely lad. Nice midfield player. Nice on the ball. Good pass to the ball, up and down, never stopped running. Bit like Colin Bell, he was a bit like that, up and down. But they had a good side. They had a very good team, Bolton.
They did. Willie Morgan.
Yeah, exactly.
Ray Train.
Yeah.
And the other midfield player, it was the one number I couldn't work out who it was. And I went onto Twitter the other day and I said, "Hi Pete, any ideas who played number 10 for Bolton against Wolverhampton Wanderers on the 14th? And he was going, it was myself, lad. So it was Reedy, Peter Reid.
Peter Reid.
Brilliant.
Well, look at Morgan, Ray Train, and Reedy. I mean, it's a great midfield.
Yeah.
And the two front men, you're going to tell me?
Gary Jones.
Yeah.
And then the fella that had a goal disallowed that I'm guessing if it went to VAR tonight, I think it would have stood.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I've watched that goal numerous times, and the commentator seems to think it was given for offside.
Well, I thought that's the reason. He did give offside, but
I can't. But again, in the olden days, offside was different, Kenny, wasn't it?
Yes.
You could be playing on the left wing, standing offside, but standing offside, the ball could be on the right wing, and you put one in the top corner, and they'll go, "You're offside."
Absolutely.
Which now you have to be interfering with play.
A little story. John McCall didn't score many goals, but he hit this 35-yarder, left foot, straight in the top corner, and I was standing out on the right wing. Yeah. He was inside the goalpost, that line?
Yep.
But about 30 yards out. I was, you've just described it. I was standing by myself out on the right wing, and the linesman gave me offside. And he had to chalk one of it. I think he got one goal in his career, I think, there. But that one was chalked off because I was standing in an offside position way out wide, right in front of the linesman.
But it's incredible, isn't it, that we used to have that as the offside rule. And I can only think that off camera, there must have been a Bolton player that was standing in an offside position, not interfering with the play. Yeah. And that's why the goal was chalked off. But it was a great strike from Neil Watmore. And he was a good player as well, wasn't he, Watmore? He scored a lot of goals at that level.
Oh, he was one of the better strikers around at that time. And I said Bolton had a really good team. There was, if you look at the individually and collectively, Ian Greaves put a great side together.
He did.
Experience, pace, goal scorers. And Bolton, the fans there, it was a full house there that day. It was just our day. I think they did try to kick us off the park. And as I said earlier on, that we had a chat at half time. Said, right, if they want promotion, they're going to have to earn it. And we really set about keeping a clean sheet. And And you could see that when Bobby went in goal, they kept throwing them all in, they kept throwing these long balls, free kicks, corners, all banging it in there. And we all got around each other, and we worked our socks off to keep a clean sheet. And in the end, we did. But I think if they'd have been calmer in the first half, maybe they might have got the result they wanted. But you know, at the end of the day, we were on a bonus, and that paid me mortgage, so we had to get a win.
Absolutely, and you beat them at the Molyneux as well, 1-0. So in the two games, in the 180 minutes that you played against Bolton, who were a very, very good team, you're absolutely spot on. They never scored a goal against the famous Gold and Black.
No, absolutely. I think of the home game, it may have been in the snow.
Yeah, it was in December.
I think a bit of snow down. I've got a picture of Sam Allardyce bringing me down in the penalty box. Now, I don't know whether we got a penalty for that one or not, but I've got a picture of him sliding in on me, and there's a bit of snow on the ground there, yeah.
He was a bit over physical, wasn't he, that young lad, Sam?
Well, I kept out of the way of him. It was the strikers that had to put up with him, rather than me. They had to play with the back to him, and of course you got a few stood down back of your leg on many occasions. But being in midfield, you're always facing him, so you could step out of the way if you see him coming.
Did you never wore shin pads, did you, Kenny?
I did. I had one shin pad, and I cut it in half.
Okay.
And then I put it just about 6 inches each on the shin bone. I never used to wear them. You're quite right, Gab, early on, but then the rule came in or something like that they said, look, you need to wear a pad. So I couldn't wear a full one. I just cut one in half and put a little one on each leg. Yeah, that's right.
I was watching Steve Perryman. He's got a great podcast as well, and they got Norman Gillier on this week. And I can't remember the player who he was referring to. It might have been Dave Mackay, and he said even Dave Mackay wore a shin pad that game.
Right.
And you think it's going to kick off here if a player like Dave Mackay is wearing shit. It's like, war has almost been declared. But players, Dennis Mortimer, I've done a few podcasts with Dennis. Dennis never wore any shin pads through his whole career. And lots of players didn't like to because they actually got in the way a bit, didn't they? And especially them damn tie-ups. And the pads would fall down, so you'd have your tie-ups at the bottom, tie-ups at your top. And at times you've just chuck them off. They're just annoying me.
Well, you're absolutely spot on. That's why I didn't wear them early in my career. I mean, it was silly, really, because tackles in them days was pretty horrendous, some of them. So, I wasn't even thinking about protecting my legs or an injury, but there was a lot of, and then as I say, the pads came in, and then we put tape around the pads, and then when your muscles got warmed up, the use of expanding, then they start aching, so you take your tape off and you throw the pad away or the tape away, and then I started using bandage around the top to hold my tie, all the socks up. So there was, they, like you said, they got in the way, and I didn't feel comfortable with them, the full pad, so that's why I wore the small pad. It just gave me a little bit of protection.
And Reedy was telling me how instrumental Dunn and the great Peter Thompson were in that Bolton team as senior pros, him finding his feet as a younger pro. And it's just so invaluable. I mean, and it was Peter Thompson's last season in the Football League as well, who had such a glorious career at Liverpool. And in fact, Alan Hudson says to me he would have been the winger in the World Cup team of 66 if Alan Hudson would have been a manager, as would George Eastham as well. He was big fans of Peter Thompson, players. George Eastham.
Lovely players there. You mentioned lovely players there. Peter, I didn't realise that was Peter's last season, actually. But a great player, great career. Him and Callahan at Liverpool, one on one win, one on the other, was brilliant. And if Uddy says that, then I agree with Uddy.
Yeah, he played. It says Peter Thompson, the erstwhile Liverpool favourite, retired following just 6 appearances in his last season with Bolton Wanderers.
Yeah.
But again, the experience and passing on that knowledge, it would absolutely
Oh yeah.
invaluable
Oh,
to.
without doubt.
So when teams buy these players, and some fans think, what are they buying him for? He ain't got nothing in his engine. No,
Yeah.
but he's inspiring the kids and he's
Yeah.
teaching. He's almost doing the coaching for the coaches.
Yeah.
Mickey Walsh was top goal scorer with 26 that
Wow.
season for Blackpool. They were a decent team, wasn't they, Blackpool, in those days?
Oh yeah, I mean, you look back and they were all tough games that you had where it didn't matter where you went. I mean, I used to love Blackpool's colours and the tangerine
Yes.
colours. They're lovely, and of course the great history that they've got with Stanley Matthews, marvellous. Yeah, Blackpool was such a big club in them days, But I used to love playing anywhere as long as I was in the first team. And like any other player, we played against some great players. We played against some great teams. We've had our ups and downs. We get injuries. We had broken legs and all sorts of different things. But I think if you ask any player, would they change anything, they would say no. They'd still go and do what they did. It was such a great period, and I was very, very fortunate to have been involved in the 70s and 80s.
Absolutely. The biggest win that season was Southampton's win at Carlisle, 6-0. But I'm looking down here and I've seen a 6-1 against Hereford away. So you were very close to achieving that as well yourselves.
Yeah. Well, if I'm right, we beat Hereford 6-1 away.
Yeah, you did.
And I think on the Tuesday we played Southampton at home and they beat us 6.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Because they had 6 shots and scored 6 goals.
Yeah.
I think Jim McCalliog played for them.
Yeah, he would have.
Yeah. And that was a culture shot. That was. I mean, we were involved in 14 goals in 2 games, something like that. It was amazing. But that's how the second division was in them days.
You give Oldham 5 as well a couple of weeks previous to that.
That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah, we hammered a few teams.
Bristol Rovers as well away, 5-1.
5-1.
Fulham 5-1 at home.
Yeah.
Quite a few fours.
Well, we had such a bloody good side, mate. Yeah. We had such a good side. I mean, we were so strong, and it was. My missus said, "Can't we stay in the second division? You got more bonus money." I said, "No, there's only one league to play in, love, and that's the first division."
But there's still fans that believe that, don't they? Why can't we stay in the Championship instead of going the Premier League? Because we win more games. But as a player, I remember Roy Keane when Sunderland won the Championship, and we're having an open top. No, we're not, because the only league worth winning is the top league. And I think that when you get into that mode of celebrating, and it's great to win the second division, etc. But you're right, Kenny. It's plying your trade at the top table, and that's what makes and defines your career as a football player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, back in the day, there was the first teams you were playing against every other week or every week. You could read them off. You knew you were playing against. You knew what kind of team they were. You knew what kind of players they were. You knew the hard men that you were playing against. You knew the goal scorers. It was because the teams used to play week in, week out. There was not a squad much bigger than a 20 squad maybe at most clubs. So your first team or your first team squad, they would be in and out, or in the side on a regular basis. So you got to know who you were playing against every week. Liverpool in the mid 70s when they won the league and the European Cup, I think they used 15 players throughout the season, and most of them played 60 or 70 matches, on the conditions that we played on. So that's what we got to know. Every team knew who you were playing. Every player knew who they were playing against every week because they were in the side every week. They never changed the team much at all, only through an injury or somebody would maybe having a different time, an indifferent time, I should say. But it was amazing. It was just, I don't know. I feel so lucky and so privileged to have played in that era and been able to run out at Molyneux with 30, 40, 55,000 sometimes there. It was amazing. Having been at Bradford, having 1,500 to 2,000 people watching most weeks. You were playing at Old Trafford and Goodison Park, Ellen Road. You were playing at all the big clubs that you he always dreamed of playing. Villa Park, you know, all the, it was just amazing period for everybody, and we had a lot of success, and we had a lot of great times, and like I'm here now talking to you about something that happened 30 years ago, maybe longer, but it's still in your mind that it feels like it was last month, you know.
Absolutely.
When the lads get together, you know, it's great. The team spirit is still there, and we're all in early 70s now, and but we still have great memories, and people like yourself, Gabbie, that brings it back. It's lovely for me to sit here and talk about the great times we had, and as long as I can keep talking and enjoying that, then that'll be great.
Absolutely, because I used to just sit there and watch Match of the Day and Star Soccer and go down St Andrews with my dad and watch you heroes ply your trade and often beat my team, Birmingham City, because we usually ended up in a relegation battle after 42 league games. Chelsea were the only side that season to have an unbeaten home record.
Yeah,
So well done, Chelsea.
yeah.
Bolton Wanderers obviously finished fourth. And I believe the last game of the season, because they'd still got one to play, hadn't
They
they?
did, yes, they did.
And they either, I think it was Bristol Rovers, they either got beat or they drew. But the wheels had definitely fallen off that wagon.
They had.
Blackpool were fifth, Luton Town sixth,
Oh,
Charlton, Notts County, Southampton, Millwall, Sheffield United,
right.
Blackburn Rovers, Oldham, Hull, Bristol Rovers, Burnley, Fulham, Cardiff, Orient, Carlisle, who courted the First Division a couple of
Yeah,
seasons ago,
yeah,
Plymouth Argyle and Hereford
yeah.
finished bottom of the pile, and they had a decent goal scorer in Dixie McNeil as well
Oh, did
during
see, yeah.
those times, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, I mean, some of them teams now have never really recovered, have
No,
they? I mean, Oldham
no,
was in the Premier League when they first
yeah,
early on, I think, and they've just disappeared big time. Hereford, yeah, great. I mean, that was a sloping pitch and a half. I mean, I remember my brother Terry playing for Newcastle there when they turned them over in the cup.
yeah,
So it was always, yeah. I mean, I like it. It's a lovely little club, Hereford was, and they still are. I mean, they're out of the league now, but they're trying to get back. But yeah, it was lovely. It was lovely. Carlisle United, they were top of the league in the First Division once, so after 3 games, they
yeah,
got relegated. So they've all had a little taste of the First Division. I can't see it ever happening again. Seeing these, you know, the smaller clubs getting into the Premier League, I can't see it. It's so so much money involved in the game now that the smaller clubs are going to be struggling ever to make the First Division. Oh well, the Premier League now, as you say. So that's a sad note, really, but it is what it is, and we have to get on with it.
yeah. Football has changed so much through the years, and it's going to change even more so as we go forward because it's money that really has changed the
Yeah, yeah.
landscape, hasn't it?
Oh yeah.
You're right. Those teams now have got absolutely no chance.
No, no.
But before I let you go, Kenny,
Yeah.
1972, what was the feeling like going into that game against Leeds, last game of the
Oh,
season when they were up for the double? Because
well,
you
you
got
know what?
nothing to play for, really, had you?
Well, we had because because we'd been something was going on behind the scenes about the bribery.
Yes.
And so we had to go out and try and win the game. We would have done anyway, but
Yeah.
it was more important that Bill McGarry called a meeting that morning before the game. I think it was unfair that the FA made Leeds play a cup final on Saturday and play us on the Monday.
Yeah.
Having played in cup finals, it took me 3 or 4 days to recover. Having played in that on that turf and the build up and everything goes with it, and that's what Leeds were, and they made them play against us on the Monday. But there was a few noises going around. I mean, it didn't include me. I was too young. John Richards was too young. If anything was going on, we didn't know anything about it. We just heard about it, and Bill McGarry had heard a little. He said, "Now we've got to go out and win this game." And I felt a little bit sorry for Leeds in a way because I have a soft spot for them with Terry playing for Leeds, you know. But my job was to go out there and win the game. And so we had to go out and I felt for him a little bit, but it was a fantastic night for us. It was 50,000 in there plus. They were on the pylons and all over. It was amazing. And of course, as you said, we managed to get a 2-1 win, and it stopped them from winning the double. But we had nothing on it. We had to win it. We had to do something, because if had we lost 2-0, 3-0, there may have been questions asked about something that it wasn't true. I don't think it was true, but it was out there, and so being a young lad, I just went out to try and win a football game like I did every week. But it was an atmosphere and a half when you ran out onto the pitch. It's quite amazing. But Molineux was like that. It was a bit of a fortress in them days, and no team liked coming to Molineux. But it was sad that they had to play that game on that night so soon after the cup final, which they won. But we didn't. It wasn't our problem. That was their problem, and we just went out and won the game. And it was something I'll never forget.
And you're right. There's always been certain undercurrents, shall we say, about Leeds United and some of the goings on that surrounded Leeds United. But I think we all also have to say that Leeds United team was one of the greatest football teams that we've ever seen in the history of English football, don't we?
Absolutely. I can reel the team off now. Sprake, Reenie Cooper, Brendan Charlton, Unsolonoma Jones, Giles Clark and Gray.
Absolutely.
That's how they were, because I knew them very well. I knew most of them through my brother Terry, and there was an amazing team. Absolutely amazing players. So there we go.
Paul Fletcher.
But they weren't good enough to beat us on that night.
Absolutely. Finally. Paul Fletcher, and I love the line that Paul gave me. He said Don Reevy had assembled a team of assassins.
Yeah, he did.
but you would like any of those in your team.
Yes,
that's how good they were. But you also were fantastic, Kenny. Not just you, but the whole team that wore the gold and black. And can I thank you so much for your time, sir? Again, it's been an absolute joy, Kenny, taking a nice trip down memory lane and remembering the wonderful game that took place on the 14th of May 1977. And I did say to Terry Curran on the last podcast, do you know what? You were so lucky to get promoted. You really were, TC. And when you look at that goal, and it did change, possibly not the fortunes of Wolverhampton Wanderers, but it definitely changed the fortunes, whatever Brian Howard Clough would say. And yes, of course, it is a game of 42 games, and it is a football season, but it is down to fine margins. And had that goal not gone in, or Bolton had have got what they wanted to get, Nottingham Forest would not have got promoted. Therefore, they couldn't have won the Football League Championship, the European Cup, and then defended it. So it just shows you how the fine margins in football can change the landscape and the direction of travel for teams.
Absolutely. I had a guy get in touch with me thanking me for the effort that we put in against Bolton to enable Nottingham Forest to step up and become the champions and European champions. So he said, I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank the Wolves team for that, because it made us one of the world top teams, and in the European Championships, in the European field. But and I said, look, it was our job. It was our job to win. We weren't thinking about Nottingham Forest. We weren't thinking about any other team. We were just thinking about winning that football game, and that's what we did. And he was quite nice. He was a nice chap. But that was a big day for Forest. And they went to Spain, like you said. History, lovely.
Where did you
talk to you all night, mate?
Absolutely, Kenny. Where did you guys go to after that Bolton game? We know where Forest went, but did you have a end of season tour? Did Wolverhampton Wanderers do that in those days?
No, we had pre-season tours, where getting ready in Sweden and places like that. But I can't ever remember going away and celebrating abroad anywhere. I think the furthest we went, Worthing. I think we went out to Worthing. I think.
Blimey.
But no, we never. I can't remember anywhere. Anyways, I just no, we never did that. I can't remember that.
It's a shame Muddy didn't play in your team then, because when he went back to Stoke and he kept them up, he took all the boys to Tampa Bay. They were crying at the airport when they had to go home. Muddy loved the old tour.
Yeah, brilliant. We did, as I say, we did America, New Zealand, and Australia once.
Yeah.
But that was, a build up to getting ready for the season ahead. But yeah, that was. We lived out of our suitcases. I was only a kid. I mean, I'd never been to Australia, New Zealand, or America at that time, and it was that was a fantastic trip. We was playing Aberdeen on 2 or 3 times. Frank Monroe had actually come from Aberdeen, and we ended up in the bar after a drink, and the fights took off, So me and Paul Walker, they used to play. We just got in the lift and went straight to our rooms out at Wave It All. But it didn't. It wasn't. It was only a couple of scuffles. That was all. But yeah, it was just great period. Gab. It was a lovely. We had some great lads at Wolves. We followed on from the 50s and 60s with Billy Wright and Peter Broadbent and all them players. I used to admire them. Jimmy Mullen, I used to go down to his sports shop on a Friday before a home game asking for some tips. How do I prepare? How do I this? And he was very influential on preparing me for games. So, I look back at the 50s and 60s. Wolves superb in them days. And we would try to emulate that, and we had quite a bit of success, but Wolves was a wonderful club, and they were great for me, so I have to thank them all for that, and all the players I played with that supported me in them days. It was amazing.
And there's quite a connection with Aberdeen and Wolves in America, isn't there? Because the first tournament that ever won, if you like, the first soccer bowl that you played in there, 82. In 1968, the Washington Whips, which was Aberdeen, played against the Los Angeles Wolves, which was Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I think it went to 6-5 in overtime. Right. And it still talks about it as one of the greatest games that America has ever seen. And I guess, you were still fighting about it several years after in a bar.
Well, I missed that trip because I didn't come until 68, so I missed that first trip to America. But I went on the second trip to America, but absolutely, a wonderful history.
Brilliant. Kenny, can I thank you for your time, sir?
Anytime.
Thank you, and thanks for listening, guys. It's been a wonderful trip down memory lane. Oh, Kenny, was there any records of that year that evoke special memories finally? I bat out of Alcombe a bit later with Andy coming out and getting pulled over by the police.
Oh, I know. Did you know? Did you remember that?
Yeah, you told me about it.
Coming out of the racecourse. No, I mean, I used to love Led Zeppelin and Steppenwolf, all the heavy rock and heavy bands. I used to love all that. Yeah, I used to have it in the car a lot, but not one in particular. But when I met Robert Plant was quite amazing. With the high profile he'd got with all these top singers and performers that I only saw on television or heard on records. With Led Zeppelin was amazing, and so when I met him, it was lovely. And of course, he did the foreword from a book, which was very nice of him. But not one in particular, mate. But great times then, yeah.
And all rock stars wanted to be footballers, and all footballers were rock stars in the 70s.
Yeah, we had hair down to the shoulders. That's right. Yeah.
Cheers, Kenny. Thanks, pal.
Cheers, Gab. All the best, mate.
Speak soon. Cheers, Ken.
Yeah. Bye.